Hello, I'm Justine Willis-Toms. Welcome to the New Dimensions Cafe. Today I'm hosting Phil Cousineau, a true Renaissance man. He's a writer, mythographer, documentary filmmaker, and lecturer best known for his work on pilgrimage, creativity, and myth in contemporary life. Phil has written over 40 books, and today we'll be exploring his book, The Wisdom of the Odyssey, 24 life lessons from Homer's epic. So welcome, Phil, to the New Dimensions Cafe.
I needed a cup of conversation, so I'm glad to be back with you.
Oh, I'm so glad to be back with you, too. We have such marvelous conversations through the years. And I just want to put out this question first. The Odyssey was written close to 3,000 years ago. So please help us understand, as you put it, the Odyssey is a living methodology for us today. So what does that mean?
Thank you. What a wonderful opening question. First, a little playful distinction here. We have travel, which is based in travail. We have journeys, which is the distance you cover in one day, or a jour. That's the origin of a journey. We have trips and so on. But in Odyssey is the journey that changes everything. It's reserved for special kinds of journeys, not just anyone. And why? It's because it's based on this story that goes back 3,000 years. It's been played in operas and on the stage, in movies, in poetry, in many versions for many, many centuries. Why? Because everybody at some point is lost. Many of us have even lost our souls by doing something we shouldn't have, or by having it wrenched from us in tragedy, in warfare. The question then becomes, how do we get our souls back? How do we find true home again? The poet Linda Gregg once said, I believe everybody is trying to get home again. What a wonderful way then to think about the Odyssey. It can be literal, people who are in exile, people who've had the door shut on them, people who've been trapped somewhere else, or it can be figurative. I have lost my true north, we'll sometimes say. I don't know who I am anymore after a divorce or a death in the family. Who am I really? So the notion of trying to get back like the Beatles song, or get back like a Van Morrison song. How do I get back? This is all in the Odyssey. And the fact that it takes 10 years to get back is psychologically true. If we are at sea, if we've been in turmoil, if we've done something wrong that we need to atone for, it takes a while to get home. I think people have identified with this forever. The Odyssey then becomes a roadmap for the soul. Sometimes you'll even see in artworks, in mosaics, and so on. First, Odysseus went here, and then he went here. And then it's a zigzag all over the Mediterranean, which is the path of the soul. When we're confused, when we're in chaos, where do we turn? There is no straight line back. Life is a zigzag back home. If you want to know how to get home again to your true self, read the Odyssey.
This is more than just a historical account of the Mediterranean warfare or adventures of the Bronze Age or whatever. It's so much more than that.
Yes, Homer again and again uses the word wise. He describes Odysseus as wise. He describes Penelope, Odysseus's wife, as the wise Penelope. Occasionally, he'll talk about Telemachus, their son, as the wise young man. And of course, Athena, who's the patron. She's the one who's overlooking the safety for Odysseus. And Jean Houston has written a wonderful book about this, The Hero and the Goddess. She is called the goddess of wisdom. So these are all subtle ways to say that Homer was on to something back there in the 8th century BCE. He knew that there was thinking. He knew that there was philosophizing. It was emerging in his time, but there's something different. Wisdom, and wisdom is what you were looking for when you went to Delphi. It's what you were looking for when you went to see a play somewhere. Wisdom, in the way that I am using it in this book, The Wisdom of the Odyssey, is the gleaning of meaning from our experience. To have the experience is never enough. We have to think deeper, reflect on this, have conversations with other people, read about other people's experiences throughout history. Slowly, we began to find what is truly wisdom in our life.
That really takes us, Phil, to the idea of storytelling. And this was performed throughout the Mediterranean as a story. I mean, it was actually performed, and people have been attending these performances for years and years. So it's really about storytelling, but it's about, and this is what you cover in your book, the understory. I mean, you tell about the adventures and everything, but underneath that is the meaning and what is being gleaned and how the soul is being healed, Odysseus's soul. So this is a big thing, isn't it?
Roy, it's maybe the biggest thing. And I'm not trying to be a smart aleck or a wise guy with that. Viktor Frankl, of course, wrote one of the most important books in our time, his kind of a memoir from being at Auschwitz in the camps during World War II. He later said in another book that the meaning of life is to make meaning. It's not just out there objectively. That's the purpose of art, philosophy, the spiritual life. We are here to make meaning. You know, the word poetry comes from the Greek poesis, which means to make. So the Odyssey, I think, in my rendering, my cobbling together of so many traditions, so many commentaries, is the effort of first the young man who would have written the Iliad. Homer, as we know him, I call him the poet known as Homer, was born on what's now the west coast of Turkey, only a couple of hours by horse from the ruins of Troy. So it would have been in his imagination in the same way that someone growing up around southern England, around Tintagel, would have grown up around with the stories of King Arthur and so on. He would have gone to the ruins of Troy, and as a young man / writer, storyteller, would have been hearing the stories in the meeting places, the marketplaces, and every pier, every port. And then something captivated him. He was set on fire by actually being there in the ruins of Troy. And he begins then to tell the stories, the roadmap, you might say, in the outside world, but what he is longing for in a world in which the lifespan would have been somewhere between 30 and 40, a world of constant warfare, constant plague and disease, and so on. What is wise about life? What makes a wise person? What is wise about war? What is wise about love? And I think what makes most sense to me is he then began telling different versions of the story that he heard as he went and became known as a storyteller who would have been invited for a weekend. That's the guess. It would have taken 3 days and nights to tell the Odyssey out loud, usually by a lyre or a flute, in a palace, in a citadel. And like every good storyteller, like every good filmmaker, you test this plot, this character, this monster, see what works, not as manipulation, but as what is casting a spell over people who see their own lives being revealed to them. That's the magic of this to me, that what we get after probably dozens, if not hundreds of versions of the Iliad and the Odyssey is the story that worked. But then even more than worked, it's the story that cast a spell. Again and again. When people look, just imagine being in one of these Bronze Age citadels. Maybe the king and the queen, they invite you, and then they invite 100 aristocrats, different families, people with money and power, and they're sitting there, and they're being told what happened in the fabled Trojan War, and then the aftermath of all what happens to all these soldiers who are deeply wounded, and the women that they would have met along the way, the monsters, the other armies that they would have to deal with, the earthquakes, every aspect of nature you can imagine. And Homer is trying a different version, in one palace after the other. And when he finally sees, as all good poets and public speakers realize, when you tell someone what's happening in their own inward life, you've got them in the palm of your hand. So the version that we have then was first performed. We know this is chronicled in Athens around 658 BC as part of an enormous festival to honor Athena, by the way. Finally, there were so many versions. The Pisistratus, the leader at the time, said, "Can we get one final version, please? Please, can you?" And that's not so preposterous because, when Francis Ford Coppola came out with the Apocalypse Now, which is based on the Odyssey, he had 4 different versions of the ending. And he played them in theaters in the Northwest, the Northeast, the Southwest, and the Southeast. And he tried to see which one worked, which one caught the attention of the audience, which one cast a spell. That's a way to think about the power of stories. You work it, you work it, you work it until it moves people's hearts. The essayist Roger Rosenblatt has this gorgeous collection of essays in which he says, it's not art unless it moves the human heart. To me, that helps explain the Odyssey that we have now.
Thank you for telling us that and how it actually moved along until he captured the hearts of people, and that became the definitive iteration of the Odyssey. And I'm just remembering as I was reading the book, there was a phrase that came to me, and it has to do with making meaning and taking action. And the phrase is the advice to hasten slowly. And what popped for me there is I saw a film many years ago, a documentary by Mickey Limley, whom you may know, and it was a documentary of Sir Lawrence Vanderpost, and he named the film Hasten Slowly. And so that phrase has so much power. So tell us, what does it mean to you, and what does it mean in the Odyssey?
Well, Mickey's an old friend. He was one of the directors for a segment of the film we did on our mutual friend, Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. So Mickey's a great guy. He took that phrase from the Old Latin, festina lente, which means in Old Latin and then Italian, hasten slowly. And it became the title of his beautiful film on Lawrence Vanderpost. In terms of the Odyssey, what I think it's reflecting is an insight by this poet who is arguably also our first depth psychologist. There are all the adventures. There's the plot. There's the possible parable of, or the allegory of Greece lusting after the gold in Troy because the Trojans became rich after levying taxes for every ship that went through the strait next to them to get into the Black Sea. Does that sound familiar in 2026?
Oh boy.
You see how immortal these stories come up again and again and again. So it's possible that this is layered onto a story where the Greeks used the abduction of Helen of Sparta as an excuse to go get some gold. But again, it's lapidary. There are so many things happening at once because on the underside, where I think the understory is where emotion is, soul and spirit, myth, art, all of it is in the understory. And in this case, the soul moves slowly. The spirit is quicksilver. The spirit moves fast. It has to move by sheer instinct, but the soul is dark. It's under. Think about, again, the beautiful analogy of this. That's where the soul is. It's saying, slow down. When Ray Charles is singing, he's not singing fast. He's slowing the voice down. Muddy Waters, Ella Fitzgerald, and all of these. That is the pace of the Odyssey. Odysseus is deeply wounded, driven to near suicide. You don't tell him to get home quick, get some lovin' when you get home, get everybody get drunk. No, no, no. Homer is saying it takes time to heal a wound. The deeper the wound, the more time it actually takes. And why? Because you have to face your shadows. Every one of the kaleidoscopic adventures that he is on in the first half of the book are projections of his inner turmoil, his inner terrors, also his inner grief. It's, I wrote a book called The Art of Pilgrimage, which is in many, many languages now all around the world. And so I was dumbstruck to see that in one of the stories that Odysseus tells Eumaeus, who is a kind of symbol of steadfast friendship, the loyal friend who will be there for you forever and not expect anything in return. Odysseus even comes to him in disguise because it was very dangerous to travel in these periods. You had to test each other to make sure you were true, say who you were. And so Odysseus comes and he pretends he's this lost traveler from Crete. And he tells Eumaeus that in one of his travels, he had to go up to a place called Dodona in northwest Greece to the temple of Zeus on a pilgrimage. He was going there for atonement because of the savagery he was involved in at Troy. This is so psychologically astute. It's rarely commented upon with any of the other reflections. But those who are working with traumatized people of all kinds, people who have been abused or people who have been hurt or been at war, they know this issue. You have to learn at some point to heal yourself, but also to atone. This is soul language, Justine. It's not just spiritual. Let's have a quick fix here. This is soul language. The entire beauty for me of the book is in the intangibles. You've got the wonderful plot that's evolving. It's film worthy. And that's why most filmmakers focus on the monsters and the gorgeous seductors and so on. But the beauty, the emotional part of the book, I think is what people the world over have identified with. Yeah, hey, I'm hurt too. I was abused or I've been at war. How do you get home again? How do you heal yourself? So that whole beautiful aspect of Ulysses, when the story goes to Italy and is translated, they chose this word Ulysses, and it means healed scar. The story of Ulysses is the rare story. I think I can say that. The rare story of the hero who does not wait for the miracle, does not bully his way into having the world submit, or does not play the victim. This is that rare hero who finds the courage and the tenacity to heal himself. But it takes time, which is why the advice is festina lente. Hasten slowly at the speed of soul, you might call it.
At some point, I know Odysseus goes down to the underworld. And in that way, he can't rely on his fame and legend. There's no fame or legend in heaven or hell, I would say. That's not the purpose of it. So say something about the purpose of going into the underworld and what is a gift that we can bring back.
Oh, thank you so much for asking it and asking it in that way. Because first, Odysseus gets this advice from Circe or Circe. As we know, books have been written about her now, and feminists, thank goodness or thank godness, have redeemed her, brought her back to the forefront. She has been with this guy for a year, and she knows he's wounded. And even a year of loving is not helping, has not helped. So it's a woman who says, you need more than me. You need more than love. You need more than sex. You need more than seduction. You need to go deeper. Remember that famous advice from Rilke, the poet, to the young poet who's not published? The reason nobody's publishing you is you haven't gone deep enough. That's in Letters to a Young Poet. In this case, Circe is saying, you are still wounded. You've got to go to the underworld to meet with the prophet, the seer. And remember, seer is seer, it's someone who sees something that's invisible. And Tiresias takes one look at him and says, yes, you will get home again, but you will be troubled. You cannot lose sight of what home is. It's beautiful advice. But while he's down there, something else phenomenal to me happens. And that is Odysseus is traveling in the world of the shades, that beautiful word to describe the ghosts, the souls of those who have passed on. They're now in the underworld. And he comes across Achilles, who, as we know, of course, was slain by Paris, by the way, the judge and the one who abducted Helen. It's a whole twist there. So Achilles confronts him in this vaporous form in the underworld, and Odysseus, in a moment of vanity, and remember, this is a story about all his pretension, all his vanity, all his ego has to be punctured slowly over and over again. This is a story, I argue, this is the first anti-hero story. It's not just a hero's journey, it's the anti-hero's journey, because the value that drives the entire Iliad is a Greek word called kleos, K-L-E-O-S. It means fame and glory. It means I will do whatever it takes for my story to be on the lips of storytellers for the rest of time. And Achilles has been, he says, his mother tells him, you can either live forever and no one will ever remember you, or yeah, or no, so you can live like ordinary people and no one will remember you, or you can live in an immortal way and your story will be told forever. He chooses immortality. And so Odysseus in the underworld says, we're still telling your story, Achilles. Everybody knows about you and what happened in the Iliad, how you were the greatest hero the world had ever seen in Troy. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but Achilles looks at him and, as we would say, growing up in Detroit, get back with your bad self. He says, Achilles says, do not fall for that glory and fame business. And again, it's a paraphrase, and there are many translations from Richard Lattimore to Robert Fagles to Emily Wilson today. Essentially, what he's saying is, I would give all of those stories, all that fame and glory that you're speaking about, for one more day of sunshine. Odysseus, do not fall for the seduction of fame and glory. And I think this is the big turning point. It's the axis mundi in the whole story. At this point, this very heroic character lets it all go. It's an illusion. It's an illusion that many modern warriors and soldiers today feel when they come home, and nobody wants to talk about Vietnam. Nobody wants to hear about Iraq and Afghanistan. And you've got these soldiers who say, why did I go? Why did I risk my life? I lost 10 friends. This is all foretold in the Odyssey. This is why Odysseus has to go down as deep as possible to do what? To confront the big illusion of his life, which I think everybody does. And it's what depth psychology has been about since Freud and Jung and Adler and all the others. It's also what great theater is about. Shakespeare, you have to go down into the depths and face your ego, your vanity, your illusion, your lust for power and greed. Justine, all of this is presaged in the Odyssey.
Oh, my. So the turning point here is that now he really is beginning to heal his wounded warrior self and become truly the soul that he needs to be in the world. Oh, Phil, I could talk to you forever. I could take weeks and weeks to talk with you. I just so appreciate your take on myth. I guess I just have to say, myth is not a relic, is it? Myth, if you could just say a few words about the importance of myths.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Of course, myth in current jargon is a lie. And the actual origins of that goes all the way back to Plato, of all people, because he distrusts poets, just in the sense that they were giving so much value to the life of the imagination, the life of the soul. And Plato and some of the early Greeks distrusted that. It can be argued that the Iliad and the Odyssey are the bridge between mythology and philosophy. Mythology is the story of how the world comes to be, how people come to be, how in our day, how businesses come to be. We have to tell our kids where they came from. Mama, Papa, where did I come from? Or where did Apple computers come from? Where did the movie business begin? We love origin stories, but deep mythology, I like to describe it in my book, The Wisdom of the Odyssey. Myths are things that never happened, but are always happening.
Mm.
You need paradoxical language to get to the essence of it, because it's not literally true. No one ever thought these were literally true, but they're psychologically true. So when you see Odysseus and this ferocious, tenacious desire to endure, that hits you. Because we have all been there. We've all been depressed. Some of us have been suicidal. Some of us have been betrayed. Some of us, I remember my mom when she was slowly dying saying, God left me behind. I'm angry at God. This is immortal. All these things. When you look at the power of Helen of Sparta, becomes Helen of Troy, her beauty, that is such a temptation to everyone around her. Look at our glamorous world of fashion, the movie business. The world spins around these archetypes, so it's always happening. And we have to be reminded by going to a Eugene O'Neill play, by going to a George O'Keeffe exhibition, by listening to Mahler's Fifth Symphony, and what that does for us who are grieving. Remember, he wrote that for his dying boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these myth in the sense was not then and there. Myth is now and here.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for reminding us of the power of this of stories and myths, and they are truthful in the deepest sense. Thank you so much. I've been speaking with Phil Cousineau, and he's the author of more than 40 books, and including The Wisdom of the Odyssey, 24 life lessons of Homer from Homer's epic. And if you want to know more about his work, and especially about his travels, he takes people all over the world and regales them with all these just wonderful stories about the times and around the Mediterranean and other places. So please check him out. If you go to his website, philcousineau.com, and he spells his last name Cousineau, philcousineau.com. Or you can get there through the New Dimensions website, newdimensions.org, where you'll find more than 2,000 programs in our archive. I'm Justine Willis-Toms. I want to thank you for joining us at the New Dimensions Cafe, and I invite you, please do join us again.